My name is Led Black. I'm the editor-in-chief and the founder of the Uptown Collective, uptowncollective.com. We are the voice of Uptown Online. We've been preaching the Uptown Gospel since 2010.
Nationally, even more so locally, there's a leadership deficit. And I wanted you to share your thoughts on that, as well as, what does leadership mean to you?
That's a good question. One of the great things about this country is that it's a very diverse country. And, our principles as Americans is that we can all, regardless of where we come from and the color of our skin, aspire to reach a higher public office, aspire to be somebody who's a leader in business, who's a leader in the private sector. But, we're coming to a time where our generation has to stand up and take advantage of the natural progression of things. And, I think there's a generational shift that's going on. And I think that there are leaders out there. It's just a matter of them breaking through so they just become more evident to people from a national scene. And hopefully I can be an example for other young people to say, I may be interested in doing that too. And so they can follow their natural desire to want to, serve their community and serve people around them.
Gotcha. It's funny, you mentioned Barack Obama. Has anyone ever told you kind of resemble the big guy?
I take it as a compliment. My wife actually jokes, and it's the ears.
It's the ears.
And my wife says you should be so fortunate that Barack Obama was elected president because he's made those big ears of yours kind of hip.
Yeah, it's fashionable. I was reading your bio, and I found it very interesting that you spent, 3 years in post-apartheid South Africa.
I did.
And I wanted to know how that, affected you as a person as well as a leader.
I actually had the opportunity to live in South Africa. I worked for a technology company there. My first go around, I worked for a cellular telephone company. And, back, 15 years ago, that was very new technology in Africa. And it was a great experience because I not only had the opportunity to sort of go to a place that had gone through a major transition. I got to South Africa 6 months after Nelson Mandela was inaugurated president.
Wow.
So the country went from apartheid and very, very quickly went to an open society where an African was elected president of the country. It was a transformative time in the country and one that, an experience that I'll cherish. Part of my job as a technologist was, during apartheid, all of these international companies had moved out because they moved their resources and their assets out of South Africa because of the sanctions.
Right.
So when the dispensation changed, there was a rush of companies, European companies and U.S. companies, to move back into the country. They needed people to help them set up shop. So I'm most proud of the fact that a big part of my job was to actually go and train people basically to take my job. So it was a great time to be there, but it was also great because I felt like I was giving something back.
That's pretty amazing. It's funny, like bringing it back to Harlem. Harlem is this kind of black mecca. It's always been so. And just want to know why Harlem is important to you.
I've been in Harlem for 13 years. I moved here in 2000, and that was the millennium, and there was this big change, and everybody was expecting all of this stuff to happen, and it was a big turning point for most people. The millennium. And I moved to New York at that time, and I really feel like that was a change in my life, and I didn't know what to expect, but it has for me blossomed into a love for my community. I've spent all 13 of those years. I've lived in Harlem, I've worked in Harlem. I married a woman who's from the corner of Harlem. We're raising our kids here. Everything in my life has been centered around this whole thing. And what's going on here is a massive transition in this community. And Harlem has an opportunity now to be this place that it's always been, a place that welcomes people, a place where people, if they're willing to invest in this community, if they're willing to be here, if they're willing to bring their talents and skills here, they're going to be celebrated, they're going to be accepted, and they're going to be, helped along the way. It's everything, and that's what makes it powerful. And on the island of Manhattan, it's the most diverse place on the island of Manhattan. And if we lose this, and we lose this flavor, I think New York is going to be at a big loss. New York City needs Harlem.
That's a good point too, because I remember, I'm not sure who the quote is from, but I've heard either, you're either at the table or you're on the menu. And I think that's where Harlem is right now, and Uptown in general. It's like, we need leadership, we need it now, and we need to be present, because this is changing, and change is not always bad. There's progress being made, but it can get out of hand as well.
Right. Well, you know, I know a lot of brothers and sisters up here who know how to cook. So my point is, you know, we need to actually understand how to cook so we can be the ones who are making up the dishes and the recipes. It's our mixture and our stew that's going to actually like take it on to the next level. One of the things that we missed out on was the opportunity to buy up Harlem, and that was 20 years ago. That's past. So we've got to figure out how to actually get a much bigger stake in ownership in Harlem, and a much bigger stake in sort of the economic dollars that are coming up here through the tourism industry, and specifically through development, because there's billions of dollars worth of developments that are either in the ground or in the planning phases right now. And we've got to have some leadership to make sure we squeeze out every job and every economic opportunity for people who are from here.
And what are your plans to kind of bring in the young people of Harlem into the fold? A lot of times when I go to establishments, you feel like it's almost like there's one group of people in the establishments, and the young kids are still outside. And how do you bring them in and, you know, engage them?
Well, this is going to sound really like simple, but you talk to them, and you invite them.
Right.
You know, we don't have a lot of leaders who really spend a lot of time trying to bring the young people in. And one of my priorities is making sure that I engage young people, because just by starting the conversation with them, you know, it starts moving you in a direction where you're bringing them closer and closer in, you know, to the fold. And people forget, you know, 20-year-old now is going to be 40 years old at the blink of an eye. You know, time goes by quick, so we got to get them in now so that they can actually progress and do that.
Why are you the person for the job?
I think the biggest reason I'm the person for the job is because I'm active. I'm a resident. I've been in this community. I've shown, you know, that I have a commitment to this community. I've got 2 kids in public school in this community. I've been a banker, community development banker in this community, where I've actually helped get projects off the ground and build affordable housing. I've been somebody who has served on boards of local organizations here, so I understand, you know, the problems and the deficits we have in education and some of the ways to fix that. I understand the problems and the deficits we have with our business community and how to spur on the small business community. I understand the challenges of being, you know, a parent of 2 small children trying to maneuver themselves through the public school system, you know, in Harlem, you know. So I think I bring a broad array of experiences that are just like the average person who lives here. And I believe that our elected officials are supposed to be people who represent the people's interests, not their own interests. So you want to have people with experience that is relatable to the people that are just the folks that live here, the voters.
You mentioned family. How important is family to you?
It is the number one thing that's important to me. And, you know, I think it's easy for folks to always go after the money. You know, our society and our culture tells us, you know, to be considered successful, you know, you've got to make a certain amount of money. In a city like New York, where there's such a disparity between the haves and the have-nots, you know, it's easy to fall into this trap of thinking that I would be better if I had more money. But the reality is that your family and your health are the most important things. And they make you who you are.
How much more awesome is your wife than you?
Incredibly, if I'm a 5, she's a 10. She's a lot better looking than I am. She is a lot more patient than I am, because she puts up with me. And she's just, you know, she's a gift. I mean, literally. I mean, you know, I believe in God. I believe that God gave her gave us to each other as a gift for each other.
Gotcha. And let me ask you a question, like, about a more serious topic about Columbia University expansion. You know, some of it is good, right? But what are your thoughts on the expansion?
Well, I mean, let me preface this by saying that, you know, I went to Columbia University. I got my master's degree there at the School of International and Public Affairs. My wife went to Columbia. She's got a journalism degree from there. And, you know, I've always been supportive of the expansion, because I think that the expansion of the campus creates opportunities. Now, those opportunities were defined in a legal agreement that they made with the community that authorized taking the 17 acres of land that they're building on, you know, right now. So my position has always been, you know, you all can build and welcome. And we want those jobs, but more importantly, we want those promises, those commitments that you made in the contract that you signed to actually start the building project going on. And that is close to 7,000 jobs during the building phase and after those first buildings are completed, and minority contracts, so that we can start building that wealth I talked about, before, where we have ownership. We've got some businesses that have a vested stake in the development that's happening up here. That makes a big difference in people's lives, because those minority women and locally owned businesses, they create jobs for people that look like you and me. And we can look at that campus 20 years from now when it's built and all of those buildings have transformed, this community, and say that's something we were a part of, not something that they built in our neighborhood, but something that they built in our collective neighborhood that we were a part of. That's a powerful statement, and that's what I hope happens.
That is, and it's funny because I was reading your bio, and I'm fascinated by the fact that you got a GED, but then you were able to go on to all these amazing institutions. Like, can you talk about education personally, as well as education, collectively?
Yeah, and I'll say this: I got my GED. I dropped out of high school when I was 16 years old because, like a lot of young people, I thought I was smarter than I was. I was like rebelling. I just made some dumb decisions. And I was fortunate because I had made a dumb decision, but I had people all along the way who actually said, I'm not going to let you fail. And they actually helped me. They didn't give up on me. And I never, that's one of the things that drives me. I don't ever want to be the person who walks past that kid and says, I don't want to at least acknowledge you and try and understand if there's something we can do to help you. Because I know all of these kids are just like me. They just need some consistent, positive reinforcement because they're smart, they're capable. They just need somebody in their lives who won't give up on them. And since nobody gave up on me, I don't want to give up on any of them. I'm very optimistic that we can actually get a lot more kids to stay in school first and foremost. But if they do drop out, or they have dropped out recently, that they can go back and get their GED. Because if you don't get your high school diploma, it's really a life sentence of poverty, because you can't get any job without a high school diploma. You just can't.
It's true. Vince, I'm really impressed, just the way you come off, and I think, I wish you the best. I think Harlem could use someone like yourself. Anything else you think Harlem needs to know about you?
Harlem needs to know about me, that I need their vote. I need your vote on September 10th, 2013. Because we have an opportunity to do something great in this community. We need some leadership that's going to be able to help all of us get on the same page and move it forward. Harlem, like I said, the swagger is back. The enthusiasm is back about the city. The money is starting to come back into this community. But none of that means anything unless we have a vested interest in what's going to go on, unless we have a stake in what the next 10, 15, 20 years is going to be. And we need to start today making sure that we have a stake in what's going to happen in the future for our kids and for us and our community.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure meeting you. I wish you the best.
Cool, brother.